All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the CNBC Evolve Summit event. I'm your host, Shibani Joshi. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's session is entitled The Data Imperative, Moving from Insight to Action. Even before COVID, organizations were racing to make their data a competitive advantage. The global pandemic has only accelerated this imperative. Today's industry leaders will design data strategies to drive transformation and impact. But how? That's what we're going to explore today in our session. Joining me now to talk about all of this and more is Sendur Sellakumar. He's the Senior Vice President of Cloud and Chief Product Officer at Splunk. Nice to see you, Sendur.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And Prakash Kota is also here. He's the CIO at Autodesk. Nice to see you, Prakash.
Good to see you, Shibani.
Before we get started, we want to let the audience know that we want to hear from you. You're welcome to put your questions into the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. With that, let's kick things off with Prakash. I want to have you kind of decode something for us. For those in the audience who don't necessarily speak IT, what does data to everything mean to the everyday person?
See, data for an everyday person, I would say, is the collection of all the different things that we want to learn from our employees, customers, or partners, and the way they consume different things. And so any action that users take is translated into data. And for companies, this is a wealth of information. We want to convert that information into insights and actions so that we can give proper recommendations and then finally consumerize those for the users. And that's where I think data plays a big role for any company.
Absolutely. And Sendur, during this pandemic, all organizations have had to change the way that they conduct their business. What new or accelerating trends are you starting to see across your customer base and your various partners? We've got some audio difficulties. While Sendur's working on that, Prakash, why don't you just jump in there in terms of trends?
Yeah, so the biggest trend, right, I think all the employees or customers had to quickly adapt to this situation. It was almost like an overnight change for all companies, all users, all employees. And we saw companies really adapting and also the users quickly making the shift that is needed. And most of the companies have started producing like the productivity gains, productivity increases that people saw during this turn. And so that's the new way or new normal that we are starting to call on how we needed to operate when the whole thing hit us hard during this pandemic.
Sendur, how about you? What are some of the trends and the themes that you're seeing accelerated right now? Sendur, we still can't hear you. I'm wondering if your mic is off, but we can see you talk. We just can't hear you for some reason. All right, Sendur's dropping off. We'll continue. Prakash, we'll keep going. These are the way of things in this pandemic world. We'll have Sendur resume and join us back. But what are some of the biggest opportunities that you're seeing, Prakash, in light of all of these changes, in light of these shifts? There's so many constraints and priorities out there for leaders. Where can they, let's say hi to Sendur. Can we hear you now?
Can you all hear me okay now?
Okay, perfect. All right. So why don't you just jump back in? We wanted to talk to you about the opportunities and the trends that you're seeing with customers and partners.
Yeah, I would say the shift to cloud has been material. So the consumption of cloud services overall has been a major component of folks because people want to accelerate, given the new environment they're in, how to adapt to the new normal, number one. The second thing I'm seeing is, and we are seeing as a company, is that the new routes to market are changing. In the old world, you'd walk into a store, you'd buy a shoe, etc. That whole consumption chain is changing. The digital engagement is required in that chain. So the engagement of a customer to a vendor is materially different. You now do everything on a mobile phone. You know, as an example, my mom, she now uses Instacart. She never used Instacart before, but she does now because she doesn't go walk into as a 70-plus-year-old, she does not walk into a grocery store. So these require all of us to adapt to this new world. And if anything, this has significantly accelerated the digital motions that we're going to see going forward.
Absolutely. When 70-year-olds are now downloading apps and using their phones and doing things that the rest of us are doing, it's a big signal. So Sendur, when it comes to data, what are the biggest opportunities? Where should leaders focus their energy, given that there's so many priorities and constraints right now?
It starts with the top line. Where are customers engaging? How to engage customers? And I know both Autodesk as well as Splunk, we're going through this digital transformation and sort of cloud transformation as well. So we look at how is the customer going to engage organizations, start there, look at the data that is empowered with that. And oftentimes there is plenty of data to be had even in that initial customer engagement. And often enterprises are not having that data be consumed in the right fashion and the insights drawn in the right way. So bridging those worlds together is important. So the first thing I tell our customers is start with their customers, start with the top line, and then work your way backwards. And it's been a very high ROI model to do so.
Excellent. And what about you, Prakash? What are some of the opportunities or priorities that you would recommend out there to our viewers?
Yeah, I think understanding the customer is super critical. And especially as customers are adapting to the new ways of working, we cannot assume things. And that's where I think leveraging data to be that powerful insight machine to really then give back the capabilities back to the customers is going to be significant. And also being agile is what is more important. This can't take months and weeks because people are changing their ways of working overnight. And so companies also have to react to those needs. And that's where the power of cloud and leveraging data comes into play.
All right. So Prakash, as the CIO of Autodesk, you're responsible for ensuring that the right people get the right data at the right time. No easy feat right now since so much data is coming through as well. What barriers are you seeing realizing data's full impact? What are you running into?
I think three things come to me, right? One is data at scale. As we all know, data only continues to grow. And so we cannot be in the business of trying to set up our own infrastructure to support that data growth. And that's where, as an example, we embarked this journey with Splunk. Like I remember earlier in the year, Sendur and myself getting on to moving to Splunk Cloud, because we really want the providers like Splunk to really take care of the infrastructure needs and for our growth, so that we can then focus as a company on the data, unlocking the data, and also converting that into insights so that we can provide value to customers. The second thing I would say is data relevancy. There is so much data coming from so many systems. And so it is super important to correlate that relevant data and metrics and convert them to insights, and then from insights to actions. And that doesn't happen over like an accident. It needs proper engineering and focused effort. And the last thing, to your point, right, having data in the right hands is super important. So the data efficiency, it's also making sure you are consumerizing the data and trying to put it in the right people's hands. At the same time, you're securing and also keeping in mind people's or users' preferences, because some people have their own preferences. So keeping that privacy and security in mind, and at the same time, you are keeping a tap on the cost, because cost is also critical as data grows, and all of these things fall under data efficiency. So these three things, I would say, are typically barriers when you really embark in this journey.
All right, so we have a question from the audience. We have a question from Carla Vernon. She asks, so many people believe data is objective and unbiased, but there's considerable research showing that data and systems that process data can have embedded bias, like facial recognition systems are one of the best known examples. These systems are not as accurate, particularly on Black and brown faces. How do we ensure that the way data is applied does not accelerate biases? Who wants to take that question?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
How about both of you? Yeah, both of you.
Yeah, I'll start. I'll let Prakash add in. In our world, we certainly see lots of consumers within an organization of our platform and of the data. But I believe one of the most fundamental ways to make it easier is you have to empower individuals within an enterprise and within an organization to get at the truth. And so what I mean by that is you have to ensure that this isn't a summary that gets presented to a small subset of people in an organization. You have to enable everyone to dissect and get at the details of that data. And so that's critically important. because oftentimes, how did you get to the, whenever you look at a chart or a graph, how often do you ask, oh, let me ask the 5 other questions that have been raised as a result of looking at that graph? It's very common. And so looking at the detail is actually as important as looking at the data. So it's the empowerment of the individual enterprise is critical to remove the biases that may be inherent in the summarized data.
Prakash, what about your take?
Especially when we start looking into algorithms or ML and other things that we are imposing on the data, I think that itself, there is a practice of data ethics that we are embarking on. That's the next journey, because because at the end of the day, you're training the models and you're training these algorithms. How do you keep those things in mind so that the models behave appropriately without showing any of these biases? So again, this is a journey in itself, but there has been a total, with the amount of significance we are putting on data, there is also an equal effort that is being put on data ethics and what needs to be done and how it needs to be consumed.
That's good to know, and you're right. The data is only good, so good and as unbiased as the people programming it. So that's important to know. That's an ongoing theme and something that's top of mind within your industry right now. I want to turn it over to you, Sendur. The cloud is absolutely everywhere right now. Perhaps migrating to it is an inevitable trend, just like mothers and grandmothers going to Instacart, getting onto the cloud, a trend that is only getting accelerated. Where is your organization on its cloud journey? What lessons can you share with others who are also on a similar journey?
Yeah, we crossed, our Q2 was the first year where our software ACV crossed 50% being cloud subscription services. So we are on a multi-year journey to significantly shift our business to cloud. And we've been working with customers and partners like Prakash and team at Autodesk as they are looking to consume cloud services as well. So we're pretty far along on the journey, but we've got some ways to go as well. So big focus for us. I would say, 2 big lessons learned in terms of our journey in the cloud, and for those in the audience. The first is it's as much culture as it is technology. Certainly, you can adopt new philosophies like DevOps operating models. You can use cloud native solutions from the cloud service providers, et cetera. But you have to have your people, and like everything starts with people, you have to have your people in a service mindset. That's a pretty material shift. For us as a software company, it was you deliver some product and you deliver it out to the customer. And now in the world of cloud, you are delivering a service 24/7 by 365. So, you're delivering the same service at Sunday at 9 a.m. as you are at Monday morning at 10 a.m. So the quality of the service is super important, and your people need to think about it in that mindset. So that service mindset shift is a big cultural impact. That's probably number one. And the second thing we found in our journey, and as I said, we're still continuing on that journey, is the shift is not just in the product organization or in how we deliver a capability. It's also in how our sales team engages with our customers, how our customer success organization engages with our customers. So it is a holistic change in how we fundamentally do business, not purely just how do you deliver now the thing you sold as software as a service.
All right, we have a question from Sanjay. How are you using data to improve EX? Is that experience? I'm not sure what the shorthand is, but that's my guess. Especially in the context of highly distributed virtual work environments.
Yeah,
Prakash,
great
start
question.
With that?
So I would say it all comes down to users' behaviors. So at the end of the day, users appropriately, take actions, and then they navigate and they also adopt to the tools that we are giving them. And we are also seeing patterns and trends. What tools are employees consuming, as an example, and what tools are they not, and which tools are they using to collaborate, and how much are they spending time on the tools for them to be effective and productive, and where can we remove the friction. I think that's where we are looking at. Wherever tools, the time the users or employees are spending, our focus is how do you remove the friction and give them that experience so that it's more like consumer friendly. Like in our personal lives, as Sendur mentioned, we are just using most of our activities we are doing over a mobile phone. And so, but when you need to get into a corporate environment, it feels like you're locked down to do anything. And so we are paying attention to all those activities that employees are doing. And our huge focus is how do you remove that friction and give more and more self-service capabilities so that they can be productive from anywhere. And that's where I think data also gives us a lot of insights, and that we can convert into actions.
And we appreciate all these questions from the audience. Please put them in the chat box. We'll get to as many as we can. Sendur, I want to give you a chance to answer that as well.
Yeah, I think the consumerization piece is a big one. That's actually what I was going to hit on as well. I think empowering our users is so important, enabling these insights. In terms of the user experience within how we build products at the end of the day, we have to look at the digital signals that come from our customers in an aggregate form to enable better product development. So one of the things that I tell my product managers is, it's not about feature delivery, it's about customer outcomes. And how do you measure customer outcomes? That model didn't exist in an on-premise world. It now exists in a cloud-centric world, in that you can go to a model where you can deliver a cloud service and you instantly know if the thing you delivered is of value. Whereas in traditional software, that may not be the case. So again, the data empowers a tighter feedback loop and a tighter engagement model with the customer.
Sendur, you lead the re-architecting of Splunk's cloud offering. What wisdom or lessons can you share from that effort?
Yes, I would say, the people, again, back to the service mindset, but I would say for us, we started off as an on-premises software company. So asking everyone to overnight shift to a cloud is a very difficult thing to do right away. And so part of one of the things we've had to do was bring in talent from external folks that have built web scale technologies and that can help show what great looks like, frankly, in some of these areas. So we've sort of taken the best of what we've learned on premises, bringing in DNA that has a cloud-centric mindset, and frankly, putting it in that mix master to sort of reorient towards a sort of a service mindset. That's been a big shift that we've made. And as I said, we're sort of north of 50% now from an ACV standpoint.
Sendur, I know both of you actually are leaders at innovating and creating companies. And Prakash, I know that you're really focused on driving innovation at your company as well. And I want to start with you on that. Agility, innovation, being able to respond quickly is key in today's COVID pandemic environment. How do you ensure that your decisions are data-driven, but also move with agility and with speed? How do you balance the two?
I think it's both art and a skill, and we have been putting a lot of focus on the whole decision-making framework within Autodesk, I would say. And it requires some level of DNA change in how we operate. It's like asking the right questions, and again, putting customer at the center in those decision-making process. It's not about what does this team want, what does that team want, but what ultimately benefits the customer, and what are the data, what insights are data giving, and how quickly can we take actions. And it's not a one-time thing, it's an ongoing thing. And again, that's the power of cloud, embracing cloud as the future and empowering your teams with that information and elevating these things as a priority is going to be critical to ensure that we continue to focus and have that rapid innovation cycles and then continuously deliver value to your customers. I think that whole decision-making process and then continuously using data for any of those decision-making is going to be critical. And as Sendur mentioned, it requires a mindset shift in how we operate, whether as leaders, as individuals, as team members, and how we engage with our customers. That will make it much more engaging and as well as more meaningful when we have interactions with them.
Sendur, I want to send over to you the first go at this audience question from Caitlin. Do you recommend any resources to teach CEOs and other C-level executives to incorporate a data-driven culture into their startups or established companies?
It's a great question. There's lots of, I'm sure, literature out there on this topic. I honestly find one of the things we do at Splunk and what I find to be high ROI is actually connecting leaders with other leaders who have done this well. That's been a very critical difference because, in the world of, for example, in our world of enterprise software, we talked to the Autodesk team as part of our cloud transition because they were going through that similar transition. And in that same way, I do believe that, leaders need to engage with other leaders, particularly in the domains that they serve. For example, a retail CEO has a different set of data topology than an enterprise software leader, for example. So I would say you start with, go talk to your peers, because oftentimes they've gone through some of this And also it's important in that mindset, when you talk to peers, you can understand the regulatory environment your data lives in. So for example, if you are in a particular retail environment, you may have different GDPR requirements than a HIPAA environment for healthcare than another environment. So the peer engagement allows for not only the data-centric mindset and the sort of operating model changes, but also the privacy elements that are specifically, can oftentimes be industry specific.
Prakash, very quickly, any resources for those looking to get smarter on this topic?
See, I would say it's the same thing, right? With consumerization, the consumer feedback or the customers are looking for very similar experiences on whatever they're consuming in their personal lives. So talking to your peers, you're not unique. You're trying to give them consumer experience and keeping it simple and hiding the complexity. So I think embarking and leveraging the data and understanding your customer will be critical. And it's very important for C-level staff to understand your customers better. However big or small your company is, knowing your customer well will make you much more stronger.
Absolutely. And that goes in any industry that you're in, that, you know, as I talk to executives, that is the theme that is running all across business right now. We're going to take our last audience Q&A question here from Keith as folks get off legacy apps. Keith would love to hear about handling structured and unstructured data to accelerate process flow and streamline process to drive faster, more flexible solutions. Any you would recommend out there?
Well,
Sendur, why don't you?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So obviously, I would one piece of that, what we do is all at Splunk. So part of one of the things that Splunk does well, and what we've been one of the things we pioneer on, and we don't solve every data problem. To be clear, there's lots of vendors out there, but one area that we work and I think is a competitive advantage for us, and that I think customers like Autodesk love, is our flexible schema read capabilities. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of systems structure data before you receive the data. So for example, first name, last name, etc. Whereas if the questions of the data change, you often have to have a different approach to getting at the data. So one of the benefits of Splunk is that we've really been taking this fundamental approach of we always want unstructured data, and we structure the data at the time you ask the question. That's been a very different change in a typical data warehouse where you might receive structured data to put into the system. And so that's been a fundamental difference we've made. And there's some trade-offs to such an approach, but it's one that we've done to provide a lot more flexibility to customers. There are plenty of also, I would say, data warehouse systems in the cloud, recent IPOs, as well as the public cloud providers that have done a lot of work around providing out-of-the-box data engines such as column restore, et cetera. So all of those are available. I think if anything today, there's a lot of tools. I certainly think Splunk is one of the leading ones in that area.
Okay, as we wrap up here very quickly, I'm going to give each of you 2 sentences. You're looking into a crystal ball. What big bets are you making going into 2021? Prakash, let's start with you.
I think the whole notion of ML, RPA, automation, bots will only evolve more and more, and we need to start getting comfortable of working alongside of these digital assistants or bots. I'm not saying that they're going to replace human workforce, but they're going to augment human workforce with a lot of repetitive work that is being taken over. Then human beings can focus on much more important and fun things where judgment is required.
Okay, Prakash, thank you very much. Sendur, let's get to you now, and we're going to wrap things up here. We apologize again for not getting to all the audience questions, but we're so happy to have the interaction.
Yes, thank you for the question. So my crystal ball would be sort of democratizing ML. So ML has been talked about a lot, but not everyone is a data scientist. I certainly am not a data scientist, but I believe the ability to use ML is frankly everyone's right, and we should empower ML to be something that everyone uses, not just not just data scientists. So I'm looking forward to our industry evolving to enable that.
Sendur and Prakash, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. Thank you to everyone for participating, and we apologize for not getting to all the questions. I'm Shibani Joshi. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to take a short break, and the program will resume on the main stage tab at 2:15 Eastern Time. Have a great day.